organizations are made up of individuals, and so we can't separate the individual from the organizational. And so we have to be able to, as organizations, recognize and support individuals in all of their identities. So as organizations, I think within a kind of white supremacist professional business model, you're supposed to turn your identities off, or you're supposed to conform to that white normative culture. But for many of us, that means that we have to try and conform to something that we are not, or to try and modify our behavior. And so I think that organizations can do a lot by thinking about how they support the individuals that make up those organizations, who has privilege within society, who is experiencing different forms of oppression that is historical. And those are conversations that I think you have to start with. You have to start with, who are we? Who am I? Who am I in relation to you? Like, I'll use myself for an example. I am very conscious of my own identities. I identify as a mixed race person. My father is from Thailand. He is Thai and Chinese. My mother is Irish American. I am queer, and I am white passing. So I have a lot of interpersonal privilege. And I also have a lot of experiences related to what it means to be the child of an immigrant, to knowing very closely, like, family and, in certain instances, my own life, different forms of discrimination. And I think that those all show up in the organization. The organization reflects that. I think the movement question is a little bit harder, because movements are so much bigger than just individual organizations. But I do think that from a principle perspective, we really should be asking who are leading our movements. I come from the LGBTQ movement. We have a history of being started by trans people of color, trans women of color. Those were not the people who led our organizations for a long time. It was white gay men. And I think that as movements, we really have to ask why that is. Who has access to the resources? Who has access to the power? Who has access to the donors? So I think that those are all the ways that I think of how, movements, social movements, organizations, and individuals intersect, that we have to be really mindful of.